D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, the game broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, and David Janes here with you. Willie Donick on the air, just polished an entire bag of Twizzlers within about 10 minutes.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
It was a little nauseating.
Okay, I'm not going to say there's nothing
You got a problem with Twizzlers?
technically wrong with it.
I do. I don't like
I mean,
licorice.
you're burying your salad just because you're healthier than us.
And is that real lettuce? We don't know. See, like you see, I threw it at him.
Yeah.
you don't even know that if that's real lettuce.
My Twizzlers were real Twizzlers.
Exactly.
I know that.
Absolutely.
You know what they say? You don't win friends with salad. But it's a good thing you guys are already my friends. I'm just not a licorice fan.
Licorice are like mindless snacks. You can just eat them. They're not technically good for you, but like Willie said, they're not the worst thing. And they have a slight taste to it, but nothing that's overwhelming. So you could just sit and eat them, watching the game or doing what Willie was doing, looking at the computer, and you don't even think about it. Yeah. And you've downed a whole pack, a pound's worth.
Oh, yeah. I can put away some.
That right there is not good for you.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. How many Twizzlers did you eat when you got here until now?
Well, it was a package, not the jumbo pack, but it was designed for one sitting, and I finished them in one sitting.
Well,
I grabbed them out of the convenience store there and treated myself, and I put them away. I would say there's probably a dozen in there.
Well, we'll see how you feel over the course of the program. You might feel a bit queasy. Speaking of queasy, that's how a lot of Tennessee Titans fans feel after reading reports from Titans-Falcons joint practice in Atlanta, or more specifically, Flowery Branch, Georgia. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us in roughly 20 minutes. He was there. So we will get his feedback on what he saw at practice. But here is one tweet from Teron Davenport just to give you a preview of our conversation. Quote, overall takeaway from the first hashtag Titans practice today. Not good. They seemed sluggish to start offensively. A lot of balls on the ground. Struggled to run the ball in team period early too. Meanwhile, Michael Penix and the Falcons cut up the Titans secondary. It's one practice, so no need to panic, but it wasn't good today. And we will get more information from Teron Davenport. And again, roughly 20 minutes. He is live in Atlanta. From Nick Suss of the Tennessean, who is also in Georgia for the joint practices, here is what he wrote about Cam Ward today. Quote, between 7-on-7 drills and 11-on-11 team periods, Cam Ward threw 29 passes. He completed 14 of them, 48.2%, with a few balls broken up and 2 intercepted. One of his interceptions came on a ball he telegraphed over the middle that veered directly into the chest of cornerback Mike Ford Jr. The other came on Ward's final throw of the day in a move-it period where the Titans dropped back on a 3rd and short and Ward tried to fit a ball to receiver Alec Iomanner on a tight slant, and the ball was popped into the air by cornerback A.J. Terrell Jr. and intercepted after a long midair flutter by safety Jesse Bates III. Excellent imagery by Nick Suss of the Tennessean. Ward's day wasn't all mistakes. Mm-hmm. He made a couple of nice sideline throws and contested windows to receivers Bryce Oliver and Calvin Ridley, and he looked the most at ease on the plays where he had to buy time for himself by rolling out and keeping his eyes downfield. His connection with Ridley still seems strong, and he had a good day throwing to DK, rookie Jim DK as well. But none of Ward's pocket-bound completions went for big gains, and very few of his incompletions were targeted deep. Fitting the theme of the day, he wasn't so much making mistakes as he was failing to put together highlights. So that was Nick Suss on Cam Ward. So Cam Ward, not a great day. Overall takeaway from Teron Davenport, not good for the Tennessee Titans. And here's my question for the two of you and all of you at 615-737-1025. Why are we surprised? The Titans are a bad football team. They have been a bad football team for the past 2.5 seasons. How many games have they won since defeating the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field? I want to say 9 in 2.5 seasons. They're a bad football team. Bad football teams don't become good football teams overnight. So I seem to sense a lot of hand-wringing and collar tugging from Titans fans reading these not so sterling reports from practice, but I don't think we should be surprised by this.
I don't think anybody's really surprised. I sort of compare it to like having a kid, and you love that kid and everything else, but it's like there's going to be something that goes wrong, and you hope that it doesn't, but you know that it does, and you want to have that optimism about a grade or something, but hey, maybe they are not at that level. Or you can equate it to sports. That's probably a better analogy. Sports, and you just know your kid is not good enough. And I think that's how the Titan fans look at Tennessee. They want to believe because of Cam Ward. They want to believe because of Jeffrey Simmons. They want to believe because, the offensive line looked good the other day and Cam looked good in practice and during the game. They want to believe this is a better team. But when things like this happen, I think they're quickly reminded that maybe this team isn't as good as we thought they were. But when you see those glimpses, it's like they can do it, like your kids, like they can play. But then at the end, you figure out maybe my kid isn't built for this sport. And Titan fans are maybe, they're realizing, I think they've realized it the whole time, this roster just isn't as good to have like consistent days, even though that's what we believe they should have. But it's hard for them to put together good days consecutively, especially the offense, because they just don't have the talent from top to bottom to go out there and do it. It's not like they're not trying. It's just that the roster isn't good at this point, and it's going to take some time for this roster to become a consistent roster. And right now, they're just not there.
I don't want to trace everything back to 3 drafts, but I go back to the empty drafts of 2020, 2021, and 2022. You can't go back and change those drafts. They have nothing from those 3. It makes that extremely difficult to be able to compete. Their mean projection across the league is about 6.5 wins, right? The over-under in any Vegas odds, 6.5 wins in a 17-game season. So you have to expect that there are going to be struggles. They are where they are. It's not going to be magic that fixes them, which is why I think they need to look at some drastic measures like trading Jeffrey Simmons. If you can get the type of draft capital that you hope you could get from a guy like that, whether it's now or at the trade deadline or even at the end of this season. But this is a full-on rebuild. Welcome to rebuild in the NFL. And no, you don't get a lot of time to do it. You need to show progress. And I hope at the end of the year there's a good feeling, but it has to be measured. I don't think you should expect dominance in any form or fashion.
Andrew on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, Adam, with all due respect, I think you're missing the point. How dare you, Andrew? Just kidding. A lot of us fans are not necessarily concerned about the caliber of players we have. We know we're bad. It's the fact that there seems to be a collectively low amount of effort in multiple practices, which is a glaring indictment on Brian Callahan. That's the issue. Now,
well, where are we coming from that, though? Did he watch the practice?
Yeah, it's not like
can we hold that thought?
Okay.
Because there is a clip from Jeffrey Simmons today at practice where he addresses the sluggish starts to the joint practices with the Bucs, or really just one joint practice with the Bucs, and the first of these joint practices with the Falcons. Here is what Jeffrey Simmons had to say after practice.
Let's talk about a slow start, and I guess you guys had that last week. Is there something that you, as one of the leaders, can you do something to make, like, not have a slow start like today?
TD, I think everybody just got to come out with a mindset. And I said it this morning, like, we could come out and hoorah, we could come out and yell, this and that. We grown men. It's a professional football. Guys got to come out ready. We know, we knew they was going to come out prepared and ready to practice men's practice. In the game, we started out slow. We saw it last season, down 28-0. So at the end of the day, we keep saying we starting slow. We started slow in Tampa, started slow in Atlanta. Like, it's time to start fast. At the end of the day, it's a lot of things that we keep saying this year, which I keep hating to go back to last year. we kept saying the same thing last year. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, we've been saying it forever. And it's one thing we kept saying last year. Say, let's do more. Come out here and do it.
But my issue is that sluggish and slow starting does not mean you're not trying. Like lack of effort, you're telling me that these guys don't care. These are guys battling to stay in the National Football League. So let's put that out of our mind. That is not a thing. Are they not good? Can you get off to a sluggish start? Yeah, that happens a lot. But that doesn't mean you're not trying.
Okay, I think Jeff, I think he's saying all the right things. You don't want to come out sluggish or slow start, whatever, however you want to frame it or whatever you want to call it. But I think now, I think it's gotten to a point where I think they feel they need to say something because they've been talked about for so long because nobody said anything, nobody called anyone out, nobody held anyone accountable. So now it's like we got to go the total opposite. We got to say every time we feel something isn't right, and I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about the players, then we need to say if they write about, the practice was sluggish, then the player feel he has to come out, whichever player it is typically is one of the leaders. Yeah, we need to do this, we need to do that. Listen, what I would tell Jeffrey this, keep doing what you're doing because they're going to need it when the season comes because it's a long, grueling season. But I want to remind him, Cam Ward's new, Tyler Lockett's new, Van Jefferson's new, Dan Moore's new, Lloyd Cushenberry is just coming back. He was hurt. Kevin Zeitlin's new. J.C. Latham is moving to the other side. Tavondre Sweat is going into his second year. Cody Barton is new. Let me see. L'Jarius Sneed isn't out there. There's some other guys I can throw in there that are all new. So when you have a bunch of new players, and again, I know he would never, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for him, but I want players to understand when you are a leader, this is what I loved about Ray and Ed and Eddie and Steve. They knew situations we were in. So they didn't go out and make it worse by saying, we're not doing this or we're not doing that. We understand we're not doing it. We know we got to get it done. But those leaders approached it because they knew the situation that we were in. I guarantee you if a Ray or an Eddie or Steve or an Ed or even Derrick Henry was on this team now, they wouldn't say stuff because they understand what's going on. You got a bunch of new players trying to get used to one another, all trying to learn a new system. Eventually, they're going to have to get it right now. They're going to have to get it right. If not, it's going to be a very bad team. But you got to understand the process first. That's what I would tell Jeffrey Simmons. Understand and I'm sure he understands it, but that's when that leadership kicks in. You always don't have to say something because you understand what's going on. So don't be forced don't let us force you to say something as a leader that you probably shouldn't have to say.
But as you know full well, Derek, when things like this happen, when the quote unquote leader of the Tennessee Titans, because we've argued about Jeffrey Simmons's leadership qualities, but he is the best player on the team. He is, in the eyes of many in that building, the leader of the team at this moment. So when you hear the leader of the team say what he just said in that clip, Titans fans are looking for someone to blame for that. Is it coaching that they are having sluggish starts in practice? Is it the talent level? Is it leadership? Is it all of the above? I think people are looking, we all know this, people are looking for someone to blame for this. Andrew, who sent in the original note, texted back in and said, Willie isn't getting it. The players are literally telling us, Simmons and Brownlee, that we are sluggish and having bad practices. This is an effort issue. I'll agree to disagree with you all. And of course, I'm not at the practices. But when the players are telling us practices are bad, accepting that it's not an effort issue and simply just chalking it up to being bad is a cop-out.
Listen, if you can give all the effort in the world, if you are a bad team, you are a bad team. Okay? That's just the way it is. It's not making an excuse. It's just, this is who you are. And this team, I could have predicted that they were going to have a bad practice for really one reason, is that they were the team traveling. They just left one state to go to another, albeit it wasn't that far. But they've been on the road for the last couple of days. And then they have to go out there. Whereas Atlanta's sitting there, they're nice and cozy, and people can say what they want to say. Oh, the guys, they're pampered. You're absolutely right. They're sleeping in nice beds. But I guarantee you that if I'm at home and Atlanta has to travel to me, that's a different story. You know, when I explain things, I just want people to get the inside view of what others don't have or never had. So when I'm giving it to you, it's not an excuse. It's just what goes on, the inner workings. That's the good part about having 3 different individuals on the station. We all can give you different point of views, and I can give you the inner workings of why things. Do they need to get better? You damn right they do. But I'm giving you the inner workings that I was about to say Vrabel, that Coach Callahan will not tell you, and that the players will not tell you. Why? Because you don't want to hear it. Because to you and to me, it's just another excuse.
Well, I also agree with you, Derek. Brian Callahan did slip into his Sunday Zoom call that they arrived in Georgia at 4 a.m. And they chose to do it this way, right? This was part of their thing is we're going to get away from Nashville. We're going to bond as a team on the road. It's an old adage that has worked, but it may or may not have worked here. I didn't hear any of their guys use that as an excuse, but I think what you're saying is could be legitimate. I also think, again, philosophically, to take issue with the texter, that you can be sluggish but still be giving your best effort. That's 2 different things in my mind. There are the best teams in the world that come out for a game sluggish. Now, can you look at the Titans the last several years? And I think this is what Jeffrey Simmons is referring to. They have not been always the best team getting out of the gate, but these are marks of a team that is thin on talent. Last year, if anything, they got off to good starts. They had a lot of leads at halftime, in the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter. So it wasn't always they got off to bad starts. So I'm not sure where he's coming from there. I agree with you, D-Mace. That may not have been the day to do it, but he's just trying to light a fire under the guys. He wants to make sure that the team is better tomorrow. But this is when we're hyper analyzing everything. We're looking for stuff. And when you say looking for someone to blame, Adam, it is going to fall on the coach, unfortunately. But this is where I think I would like to see some measurement from the front office when they evaluate the coaching staff, evaluate the level of talent. I really think it's as low as any team in the NFL, depth-wise.
Well,
it's as low as any team. It's in the bottom 5 conservatively.
I can probably almost guarantee you that Callahan, what you're saying, he did this on purpose, and for this reason, because it sets up a sense of adversity. Because it's like, you're tired. Yeah, we had to travel, but let's see how you react. Let's see if you've gotten to that point where we are making strides where we can put you back on the field. Not necessarily putting you your body at harm, but putting you back on the field when you're a little tired. We didn't have, we got in late and we had to hit the practice field the next morning. Let's see how, you adapt, because we may have to go out west and the time difference, because of the time difference, we got to learn how to get our bodies back going. And I'm sure that was one of the reasons why he chose to do that. And listen, this team didn't respond to, what the adversity that he put in front of them. I'd rather find it out now than to find it out later. So now I can adjust as a head coach and move forward. You just hope that your team learns from this setup and as an adversity with this team. And Jeffrey, keep saying what you're saying. I'm not trying to say Jeff doesn't need to be a leader. He needs to keep holding guys accountable. But I think also, too, what I've learned from other leaders is that you really got to know the situation that your team is in and how your personnel look and who's new and who's not. as you start making those comments.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. By all reports, the Titans had a rough day in joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons. The Titans will give it another go tomorrow. Hopefully, they will have a better performance. But Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, was live in Georgia for the practice today. We will get his firsthand evaluation of the Titans, and we will do that next. 615-737-1025. Later today on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls. First pitch is at 5:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
Ha- Happy, what is it, Tuesday today? Yes, it is Tuesday. So happy Tuesday to everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to come up short. But I got some good news because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. You know how? I know this because they put together a program for me, and I've dropped weight in the last 2 months. I've dropped to where I think it's about 15 pounds, somewhere around there. But connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Pleased to be joined on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, by ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter Teron Davenport, who is live in Atlanta. He is presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. Hello, Teron. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well, man. I'm trying to keep myself from throwing a delay of game flag on you guys, man. What's going on?
Sorry about that. Sometimes we just get worked up and we talk a little bit too much, but that is the magic of live radio. But you're here with us now, so we are happy about
right.
that. So, Teron, in the first segment, we played a clip from Jeffrey Simmons based on your question after practice about the sluggish starts that the Titans have had in joint practices with Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Jeffrey Simmons was not the only player to mention that, of course. Simmons also mentioned that the slow starts doomed the Titans last season. So when you hear players complain about that sort of thing, we're all looking for somebody to blame, right? So who is most responsible? Is it coaching? Is it talent? Is it leadership? Is it some combination? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think each guy has to look within themselves. And one of the things I like that Jeff said is, like, it's professional football. You don't need to all the rah-rah and all that stuff. And, Cameron Ward has said that before, too. If I have to motivate you at this level, you're probably not in the right business. So really it's just a inner, hey, what can I do to motivate myself and make sure that I'm ready to play? And I think that's just what has to happen, self-reflection on each individual part.
So, Teron, in your lengthy notes on X from practice, you mentioned Cam Ward was intercepted twice. And I believe on the first one, you wrote, quote, Ward got picked off, didn't see the defender lurking in zone, end quote. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is something that you have noticed over the course of training camp practices when it comes to Cam Ward. What are you seeing from Ward on those throws that might be throwing him off?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like in this case, he didn't see that defender lurking there. And sometimes, things just go fast. But then it's also like, okay, how many of these are throws that he admittedly is feeling out and trying to see what he could get away with? So it's a combination of the two. The two interceptions, I mean, the second one, you know what? He put the ball in a spot. Alec Ironmaner ran a slant. He put it in the spot. A.J. Terrell, and this is something that Calvin Ridley said after practice, like, that other team is good too. And those guys make plays, and everybody expects football to be perfect and every pass to be completed. It's not going to. And again, like, I'm not excusing, I'm just explaining, and in this case, paraphrasing what Ridley said. So that second interception, it got punched in the air. A.J. Terrell is a really good corner, and Jesse Bates is a safety that just has a magnet for the football. He corralled the tip pass that flew up in the air, and it was a pick. And, these things happen. I'm not saying to panic. I'm not saying to overreact to touchdowns that he throws either. I think it's just, you just got to take it in stride and understand that there are ebbs and flows in practice, especially with a rookie quarterback.
Now, TD, the one position that we have been talking about, but in a good way, especially after the first preseason game, is the offensive line. And it seems like the offensive line, once again, seems to be trending upward, which is a good thing considering what we've seen over the last 2.5 seasons. How did they look today? Were they a part of the sluggishness?
Not necessarily. I think they held up well. There weren't a lot of pressures. They ran right at James Pierce a couple times and moved him up out of the paint. So that's something to kind of hang your hat on. Ward, for the most part, had time. There were a couple coverage sacks. There was one actually, and that's where Brandon Allen, somehow he got cut, had to go in for stitches. So I think overall the line did well. They were run blitzing, right? There's a guy named Josh Woods, a linebacker, number 42 on the Falcons. I can't wait to watch him on Friday because this dude has really showed himself to be a player today in what I saw. So, I mean, look, they did a good job overall. I think the O-line is something that this team is going to actually be able to hang their hat on and feel that, they always have a shot going in because of them.
Now, should we be alarmed about this secondary? Because they got carved up in the first game pretty much. There was some plays made by Brownlee Jr., but it seemed like Tampa was able to get some things through there. And based on what I'm hearing today, it wasn't any different. That the Atlanta Falcons and an offense pretty much had their way with the secondary. So, is there something that we need to truly be concerned about?
Yes, I think there should be concern about the secondary, and it's about time it gets addressed, right? Because you look at Daryl Baker Jr. last year, I thought he was a pretty good player, and I still think he's a good player. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is what he is, but it's just after those guys and Roger McCreary, I think that's where you have some questions. And, for me, I look at a guy like a Quincy Riley out of Louisville. He went to MTSU for a moment too, and it's just like, that's somebody that should be on this roster. He passed him after Jair Alexander. He's already got 2 picks down there in New Orleans. I think he should have been a draft pick, and they had him in the building. So you have that. It's tough sledding, but then also you look at the way they set things up. Zach Robinson, the OC from the Falcons, I thought his play design was really good. So we know Bijan Robinson is always going to attract the attention of linebackers, right? So they would take Drake London and have him on a close split, and they'll either line up Robinson outside of him or they'll motion him outside of him. And what happens? Cody Barton is taken out of the play. Who is their best hook zone defender? Cody Barton. So what would they do? Bijan will run a route. Barton will go with Bijan Robinson, and London will run an in-breaking route, and you got a 6'5" guy able to get positioning, and Penix, could put it on the money, and that's how they were making a lot of their plays today. Now, granted, Amani Hooker, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it seemed like he was late getting over on a post that Penix threw to Casey Washington for a really long touchdown. So, I mean, look, they got to get it together. This team doesn't have a pass rusher up front that could help them and speed things up. So it's not going to look too good for the secondary if it remains the way this is.
Teron Davenport is with us. We're talking about the Titans here during their camp there in Atlanta as they practice against the Falcons. So, Teron, just based on Brian Callahan's tone and the words he used when he was asked about L'Jarius Sneed, he didn't sound too optimistic about a timetable or getting him back anytime soon. What is your read on Sneed? Because based on what you just said about the secondary, they obviously could use him, but I'm starting to be concerned myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be some concern. I'll be surprised if he's here, after this year, because next year they could cut ties, and I think it's only like $8 million. But I mean, look, I watched him come out today. He grabbed his cleats and he worked inside. I have no clue when he's going to be back. I mean, it's 2 injuries, right? Like you got I don't know. I would say the cleanup is more like hurt, where I would imagine would be able to play on that, but I don't know. He's still on PUP. There's no time. Like the head coach doesn't know. I for sure don't.
So when you factor that in, they are the number 1 team on the waiver wire. Do you think it's reasonable that there will be a corner brought in using that position that they have at some point?
I would expect it to be the case. Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's all depends on, who comes available. But I think like after roster cut down, I mean, there's usually some guys that are pretty solid that come open, and I could see it. I mean, look at Daryl Baker last year. So I could see that being the case.
So Teron, you mentioned Penix, right? This is an interesting track, right? They decided to wait. That it was a pretty outside the box thinking by the Falcons to bring in Cousins and then draft Penix. But here's Penix looking good at the end of last year. He's now the starter this year. How did he look to you? And what are you hearing about what they did right with his development process?
Yeah, I think it just pretty much is one of those things where you got an established veteran and you want to put your guy in an incubator, so to speak, and let him come along. Penix played a lot of football in college, so that's not to say he wasn't ready. It's just they had a $100 million quarterback in front of him, that they, went ahead and rolled with. But then it got to a point where he wasn't himself. So it's not like, they just suddenly put him, Penix out there. Kirk Cousins never truly recovered from that Achilles, and he was already not the most mobile guy anyway. So there were a lot of issues involved in that, and I think they've done it the right way. Penix looked solid today. I mean, there were some things that they were able to do to confuse him and make him pat the ball and run or throw it away. So I think overall he's going to be a solid quarterback for them.
Do you think Trevor Siemian will push Brandon Allen for the backup job eventually?
I think so, man. He actually came out today and impressed me. Right, Brandon Allen went out. He came right in. He hit like 4 straight, man. And a couple of them were high percentage throws, but just to be able to get out there and get on that streak after in your first practice, your first reps, I thought was good. Siemian looked solid to me.
Teron, before we let you go, speaking of the secondary, can you provide some clarity on Kevin Winston Jr.? He hasn't been practicing lately. We know he's coming back from ACL surgery, but what is the plan for him over the next couple of weeks and the big picture approach for him as the regular season nears?
Yeah, so it's more of a management thing. They want to make sure that they don't have him out there too early. It's like weighing risk versus reward. To them, the reward right now to have him out there, it doesn't outweigh the risk of him, re-injuring or having something tweaked or anything like that. Remember, I mean, look, ACL, even though guys come back from it so quickly, it's still a major surgery. And so you're going to have some post-surgery soreness, 5 padded practices in 6 days. It was a lot for him. And I think the young man, he wanted to push it and see what he could do. And the team allowed him to do so. And now it's time to reel it back in a little bit. Big picture is to have him at some point during the season, not at some point, to have him ready for the season as opposed to, rolling him out there and having him risk an injury. And I think when you look at it, they want him to get those mental reps and go about it that way. And he's here. I talked to him a bit before practice. He said he feels good. And that's pretty much what it is. But I mean, look, like don't be surprised if at some point, like he emerges as a starter, in his defense this year. And if he's not a starter, he's going to get a high percentage of reps also.
Teron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation Titans reporter, joining us live from Atlanta. Teron is presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. Teron, great stuff as always, my friend. Enjoy Atlanta. We'll talk next week.
All right, for sure. Appreciate it. You guys take it easy.
You as well. Teron Davenport on the program, presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. 615-737-1025. We will all react, you can as well, to what Teron Davenport had to say about Titans practice today against the Atlanta Falcons. We'll do that next at 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Join Fat Bottom this Saturday for their Lucky 13 anniversary party at 800 44th Avenue North in Nashville. It's a full day of casino-themed fun, live tattoos. What's a live tattoo? Live tattoos from Black 13, face painting, balloon art game, and of course, ice cold beer. Get a $100 gift card half off while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Plus, don't miss their Lucky 13 anniversary party this Saturday at Fat Bottom Brewing Company.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. If you have a home improvement project on the horizon and you're looking for the best way to fund it, look no further than Loan Pronto and their rapid equity loan program. They've got the ability to get you that cash fast without touching your low-rate first mortgage. No appraisals, no waiting, no BS. Instant approvals. You can call right now and get approved by dialing up 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Your home's equity is yours. So get that cash out, and then you've got the cash to fund that home improvement project that's going to make your home even more valuable. And do it with the best. Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Always a pleasure to be joined by Teron Davenport to get his firsthand evaluation of the Tennessee Titans from their joint practice in Atlanta. They'll be back at it again tomorrow against the Falcons. Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Our friend Gorilla is on the line. Gorilla, who is public enemy number one in Huntsville, Alabama. Gorilla, thank you for calling, my friend. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I got all that straight with my boys down in Huntsville. I'm well known in that area right there.
I heard you couldn't ride through
Huntsville.
Huntsville.
It couldn't have been fun.
Now you can't drive through Hopkinsville, however. Hopkinsville is another story.
Okay, well they can have whatever they want. We can have a Hopkinsville. Yeah, we'll bottle Clarksville in that if they want some too. Bowling Green, all that. We can handle that. Yeah, I don't want to see Huntsville and Birmingham. But check this out, man. This is something that's just concerning me. You know, early word out of our camp is that Cam has a real strong connection with Calvin Ridley, and we're watching that pay dividends. But for some reason, he's not on the same page with the other receivers. But so it leads me to ask this question here. If you know he has it going with Calvin Ridley and he has a built-in connection with Restrepo, why don't we just take a step off the curves, man, and just try to work Restrepo in there as a slot receiver? I mean, I'm kind of just, I'm frustrated about that because we're not getting anything going with any other receiver but Calvin Ridley. And you know what's going to happen, D-Mace? You guys know what's going to happen, Adam. On game day, they're going to do everything to shut down and take Calvin Ridley out of the mix.
No, you're absolutely right.
Thank you, Gorilla.
Thank you, Gorilla, for the call. You're absolutely right about that and how you're seeing it. They're hoping one of these young guys, can get up to speed in this offense because they're going to need them. Listen, he's going to defer to Calvin Ridley no matter what because he trusts Calvin Ridley. There may be some out there that don't look at Calvin Ridley and think he's a number one wide receiver, but Cam Ward does. He thinks and believes he's the number one wide receiver. So that's his belief. He's going to go out there and he's going to make sure that Calvin Ridley is a part of the game throughout the game. That didn't happen last year with the quarterback. Now, you're right. He's going to have to find that second and third guy. But I don't think, just because he locks in or just because he wants to throw to Calvin Ridley, it's going to hamper him in any way. You're right. He's going to have to find that second or third guy, but it's not him that finds it. It's that guy getting open. Once those guys get open enough and they start catching the football enough, then he will gain trust in those guys as he has already gained trust in Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's no different from any other number one receiver. We always said you got to take out the number one receiver and because he's getting the ball. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen. They look at Calvin Ridley, however you may look at him, he's their number one option in the passing game. And he started to prove that last year once he finally connected with the quarterback. It's good that he's got that connection with Cam Ward now. Those other guys need to find their place in this offense, and they need to find it quick because the faster they find it, the better this offense is going to be.
Do you like the receiving core better this year than last year?
Oh,
because
man.
what I would say is from an individual name recognition, accomplishments, last year's was better. This year, I see a little bit better role definition on paper, but I'm not sure they're as talented. So I'm not. And then there's the X factor of these young guys that are going to have to play somewhere in there. So what do you think? Because that's an important question with a rookie quarterback in there.
Yeah, it is. I think the talent, I think they have more experience last year, not necessarily because, listen, think what you want.
DeAndre Hopkins in there. That's a ton of experience.
Right there. They had Tyler Boyd. Think what you want about Nick Westbrook.
Yeah.
Kene, he was a good player in this offense. It would be nice to have him in this offense right now in place of and I'm only saying this because Nick Westbrook-Akine knew the offense in place of Tyler Lockett or maybe even Van Jefferson. And I'm only saying that because Nick knew this offense, okay? And he would be another experienced guy. Is he a number 1 or 2? No, but he works well as the number 3. So having a guy in the offense like that it's good. They don't have that guy because they don't have the guy that has experience in this offense with this quarterback. They only got a number 1 guy. They're trying to look for those other guys. So to answer your question, I think from an experience standpoint in this offense, I think the guys last year were a tad bit better. But that doesn't say that this crop of receivers can't pick it up. They still have time to pick it up.
I think it is obvious that other teams are not going to look at the names on that list and say, boy, we've got to stop this guy, this guy. They're going to be saying, we can handle these guys. We can cover these guys. So it's going to have to be an overachieving unit, I think. And I would even throw the tight ends in there. They're going to have to be more than the sum of the parts because they're not going to scare anybody.
Let's go to Bubba from Belle Meade on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Bubba, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yes, gentlemen, I really appreciate you guys taking this time slot. I mean, it's been a joy to listen to you the last few days, and I just want to continue DVD, and it's a pleasure. But I'm a little confused because I agree with Derek said earlier, and what Willie said. I'm trying to determine, the difference between sluggish and just effort. And to me, it's kind of drawing the lines together. But can you guys define what sluggish is? I mean, let me. I guess let me address this to Derek, because I mean he's been there, he's done this, so not that he was sluggish, but he may have seen others. But just and the other thing that bothers me is they're on a road trip, they finished up, they're in Atlanta, the heat index in Atlanta was like 105. So I'm just trying to determine all this.
Mhm.
I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Bubba.
Thank you, Bubba. Appreciate it.
The check is in the mail, Bubba.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Bubba. The difference to me between sluggish and effort is this: you may be tired, you may be banged up, and you may in your mind want to give the effort, and you go out intending to give that effort, but your body just isn't cooking. It's not, no matter what you do, for some reason, your body is just not cooperating with you. To me, that's sluggish. That my mindset is to go fast, and it may seem like to me it's going, but when you turn on the film, it's like, no, man, my body just wasn't. I wanted to. Being like, what was the other one? Being
Lack of effort.
lack of effort. That's different. That's coming out and just don't care, no matter how you feel. You just are not going to run to the ball, or you just don't feel like practicing today, or you just don't feel like covering that zone today, or you feel like, hey, let's brother-in-law. That's what we used to call it back in the day, brother-in-law.
Explain that.
Brother-in-law is, you take care of me, I take care of you.
Right.
We ain't going
Neither
hard.
one of us are
Yeah,
trying.
we ain't gonna go hard. So
Let's
it don't
not
look,
make each other
so
look bad.
yeah, exactly. So it don't look good on
I've never
film.
heard that
So it
before.
don't look bad on film. Yes, brother-in-law. Usually it happens like on a
In a walkthrough,
walkthrough or something.
a shoot around, I would say that would be an area that would happen. A
Exactly.
game day shoot around.
Exactly. So to me, that's what lack of effort is. Your body, knowing you can do it, but just choose mentally not to do it. The sluggish is wanting to do it mentally, believing you can do it, but your body is just not giving what you want it to give. It's like trying to, stretch out, 10 miles and you only got 7 miles worth of gas left. It's like, yeah, you could try to push it no matter what, but you ain't gonna get there. You're just not. So there you go. So that's the difference, Bubba.
615-737-1025. A lot of this conversation centers around the culture of the Tennessee Titans. And The Athletic has a story that was published, I believe, yesterday, which details how the Kansas City Chiefs transformed their franchise independent of Patrick Mahomes. How can the Titans follow that blueprint? We discuss that next. 615-737-1025. This September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinetics' Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org.
Derek Mason here. And if you've been injured in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible or nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fuson, and you can find them in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, the game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Trevor Maddich will join us later this hour, roughly 4:40. We will get back into the Titans preseason opener against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and more. We look forward to having Trevor Maddich's insight in roughly 40 minutes. Also be listening this hour because we do have a pair of tickets for Rod Stewart on Thursday night to give away that concert at Ascend Amphitheater. So listen for the cue to call. That will happen this hour. Here's one thing we can all agree on. We all wish the Tennessee Titans were more like the Kansas City Chiefs. I think pretty much every team in the NFL wishes it could be like the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Kansas City Chiefs have been the model of success for what? The past decade, close to a decade?
I'd say more than a decade.
More than a decade?
Yeah.
It's been a long time. Now, The Athletic had a really interesting story that was published yesterday by Rustin Dodd with the headline, "Before the Super Bowls, the Chiefs were at rock bottom. One blueprint changed everything." Now, I know a lot of you are about to leap to your phones and text us at 615-737-1025 and say, Patrick Mahomes. Well, Rustin Dodd writes in the story, quote, "While the arrival of quarterback Patrick Mahomes elevated the Chiefs to the next level, it was the culture and foundation in the early years that allowed Mahomes to thrive. Before the Super Bowl parades, there was the turnaround. And whether Andy Reid knew it or not, the process he carried out shared most of the attributes and therefore the lessons of a great corporate turnaround." So the beginning of the story is about Andy Reid leaving Philadelphia, joining the Kansas City Chiefs in 2013. Keep in mind, the 2012 Chiefs had finished 2-14, worst record in team history. They did not have a good quarterback, let alone a franchise quarterback. They hadn't won a playoff game in 19 years. And Andy Reid, who was successful with the Philadelphia Eagles, he never got over the hump, but the Eagles were consistently in the mix with Andy Reid as coach. So Reid comes to Kansas City, and he took some cues from the corporate world to try to turn around the Kansas City Chiefs. Keep in mind, Andy Reid arrived in 2013. Patrick Mahomes arrived in 2017. So I thought it would be interesting to look at some of the lessons that Andy Reid learned during this turnaround, according to Rustin Dodd, the author of the story, and apply them to the Tennessee Titans. And can the Tennessee Titans follow the same blueprint? Do they have it within the organization to follow the same blueprint that allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to turn from one of the worst franchises in the NFL to arguably, well, probably not arguably, the best franchise in the NFL? So here are a couple of the lessons that are detailed. Lesson number one: you don't dwell on the past, but you do learn from it. And every lesson has an anecdote from the author. So the first lesson was, you don't want to dwell on the past, but you do need to learn from it. Lesson number two, and Derek is going to use his firsthand experience being in NFL organizations to discuss things that he saw that worked, things that he saw that didn't, and whether the Titans can apply them. Lesson two, let's start with here. Start with culture. In a losing organization, it's always worse than you think. Quote, "At some point around the time he hired Reid, Clark Hunt realized the Chiefs did not have an organizational culture. Reid set out to change that. He focused on simple values like honesty, respect, and caring. He told players to be themselves and showcase their personalities. In meetings, he outlined a set of hardline rules and boundaries, then gave players the freedom to exist within them." The author continues, "The respect stretched to other corridors of the building where employees had long felt neglected. Reid started a tradition of inviting coaches' wives to join the traveling party for one trip each year. He told players he wanted to see their families celebrating on the field after wins." And there was a quote from, I believe, Dustin Colquitt, the ex-punter. Quote, "He knows how to treat everybody the same, which is differently. He embraced every guy and their personality and what they brought off the field. A lot of coaches would be like, quote, I don't care what you have going on outside. We got to focus in here. And he said, quote, we care about you, whatever you have personally going on and off the field.
You know who had that same sort of model?
Who's that?
John Harbaugh.
I figured you were going to say that.
He had that same model. And in particular, he wanted your family around. He wanted them to feel. I can remember I think it was after my first year. Or it may have been my second year. And they got wind that, my then wife, Marcy, she was having a little bit hard time adjusting, to life. It may have been the first year. They called her up. They wanted to see what was going. That right there. Every day I walked in the building, it was because of stuff like I knew they had my back. And it wasn't just about football. It was about life. I can remember sitting in the locker room with my coach, my position coach, and me having some issues in my life and talking with my coach. And he was like, I'm here for you. Stuff like that. I'm not saying that it's not going on in the Titans facility. I'm not saying that because I'm not in there. But when you talk about culture, and Vrabel said this, and it's ironic that what he said ends up sort of biting him. Culture is it's not what happens when things are going well. It's about how we're going to stick together when things are not going well. How did the Titans organization stick together? They didn't. There became a lot of backbiting, stuff leaking out of the building. It seemed they pit a coach against the GM. It was all of this stuff, this underbelly stuff. One GM gets hired, he shouldn't be a GM. All this underbelly stuff. So was the culture there, or did the success come too soon for that team? Because now if that culture was there, whether you fire a coach or not, it should remain. Why do you think that the teams that are consistently good, or don't have too long of a dip, and I'm going to listen, the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, those are two of the teams that if they do have to take a dip, it's not for long. You know why? Because the underbelly of the culture there is right. Not to say that they're always going to have great players, but they know what they're looking for. That's what John Harbaugh brought to Baltimore, and hopefully that's what Brian Callahan is trying to bring here. Because you're right, there's no culture here. It's really not, because you can't even say it was the culture from the previous regime. Because looking back at it now, you really didn't have one. Because I said this 2 years ago. Watch what happens because remember when right before Vrabel, I think it was right when Robinson got fired, you start hearing things leaking out that building. I said, listen, we will start to see players talking now. And then when Vrabel got fired, players start talking. So was the culture really there in the first place? That's what I'm wondering.
When I read this article, I don't know how you guys felt. I did not have my eyes pop open with, wow, I've never heard these principles before. Most of it is common sense. Most of it is smart things that you are taught when you go to any leadership conference. So I don't think it was outside the box thinking or anything unique that the Chiefs did. But it's the people, and it's how the people work together. I think Andy Reid has proven to be a very good leader who was the right guy to set the tone. And I don't know anything about the Chiefs' ownership and how it runs from the top down. But I think that's a very important thing, is the administrative part, the front office people, the non-football ops people have to be on the same page with the vision for the football people. And that is where I think the Titans right now are really off in their synergy. And I think they had some pretty good chemistry and identity going in the best of the Vrabel years. Would we agree? Even though,
so I mean, was it?
I
don't know.
I think at a time it was. I think John Robinson was on a pretty good page with Mike Vrabel for a good while. But
why did it erode so quickly?
Well, they didn't draft well, and that was going to catch up with them for a while. But then when Amy Adams made the rash move of firing John Robinson, She burnt the culture down to the ground. I've always asked this question, and it is not. I would ask it no matter who the owner was, but I asked it when Bud Adams was the owner. Who are the inner circle strong people that you surround yourself with as an owner when you make the tough decisions of how do I connect everybody from me, the owner, all the way down to my football coach and everybody else? And I still do not understand the Titans operations. Now, I think that's why ultimately Chad Brinker was hired. I think he sold Amy Adams Strunk on, I can build you that system of organization. I can bring in the analytics. We don't have any analytics. I can bring you this. But I still think that is they got a long way to go before it really appears that everybody is on the same page. I think it is still a very broken culture that has been slashed and burned, starting with Robinson, then the hiring of Ran Carthon, which didn't seem to be on the same page with Vrabel. Then you get rid of Carthon, and you get rid of Vrabel, then you get rid of Carthon. And so we're starting over. We're in a jumbled mess right now that you're still trying to climb out of. And Brian Callahan's sitting there going, okay, I got to try to build a culture. That's not an easy thing to step into, especially for a young head coach. So I think it's a big problem, the culture. And it is certainly not going to be as easy as it was for the Chiefs. I think Mike Barganzi is probably realizing that as he comes in. This is going to take some time.
Well, that's why Brian is trying to do some of these things again that, some want to call high schoolish or, amateurism time. This is why he's doing all of this. He's trying to build up a culture that is gone. Yeah, they may have had it for a brief moment under Robinson in Vrabel, but it quickly dissolved. So now you have what seemed to be in Amy's mind, you have fresh faces, even though Brinker isn't as fresh, but is a fresh ideal at that position. That's why, and we didn't like some of the moves that they made when it comes to personnel that they end up, parting ways with that have been here for a very long time, that was doing, which I believe excellent at their job, or was doing a damn good job. That's why they chose to move away from certain people. They're trying to get everybody aligned in one space. And so everybody is thinking the same. Yeah, you may have some thoughts, but collectively we're doing this together, and nobody seems like an outsider. We may differ in some views, but we're all on this together. This is all our train, and we're riding in the same direction. We don't want anyone that may not have been on the train previously, or someone we thought could be on this train. That's why I believe they made some changes, and they're going to continue to make changes until they get this organization the way they want it.
One of the other lessons highlighted in this article on The Athletic about the Kansas City Chiefs is lesson 4. Everyone knows communication is key, but is it good communication? Is it consistent? Quote, Andy Reid emphasized informal communication too. He opened lines at practice, asking players to deliver feedback. He extolled creativity and collaboration. He filled the playbook with gadget plays and exotic formations. The plays were chosen because the staff thought they might be successful, but Reid also believed there was value in allowing players to have more fun. Reid rarely yelled, but he was always firm. He prided himself on never losing control. The communication style paid off in clear ways. The year before Reid arrived, the Chiefs' practice facility was a ghost town on Tuesdays, the NFL's traditional day off. In Reid's first year, it was often packed. Colquitt, the punter, would show up to work, and there would be 35 or 40 players in the building working out, receiving treatment, hanging around the locker room, just talking. It was a culture Reid fostered.
And this is why in the offseason, there was a big deal made about Jeff not being there. For whatever reason, and it may have been Valerie, but that was the big reason why. Because we're trying to set something. Some of the guys even said there were more guys here this offseason than there had been. So what they are talking about in that article is what Brian Callahan wants to start happening. People want to be inside the building. People are enjoying having fun playing football, doing their job. And make no mistake about it, in this business, if you ain't having fun, you ain't doing your job at a high level, because you should go out there having fun and enjoying playing a game that you played since you were 5, 6, 7 years old and getting paid a whole ton of money to do it. So why shouldn't you be happy and enjoy it when you walk out there? That's what he wants them to get to, a point where they're happy about being in that building, where they don't want to leave. That's why you're seeing more guys show up. That's why it was, a big deal when Jeffrey Simmons didn't show up, because in everybody's mind, well, if this sort of like what Kansas City doing, I'm sure that Alex Smith showed up, when he needed to, or Patrick Mahomes showed up, or Jones showed up. They were there. Why? Because the culture festered, guys wanting to come in, Travis Kelce wanting to come in and put in their work, because they enjoyed not only the organization, but they enjoyed the team.
Do we think, and look,
and I'm not saying Callahan isn't doing that. That's what he's trying to do.
I think Andy Reid, as history has shown, from the time he got that job and turned around the Chiefs, going back, looking at what he did in Philadelphia and what he's done since, he's going to be one of the top 5 coaches in NFL history. So we're talking about the best of the best. And he's a brilliant guy at putting together an offense and things like that, beyond the culture part of it. So the culture's part of it. I also would be curious, and I'm looking through some of the names of the players on that first team of his that went from 2-14 to 11-5. And I'm trying to ask myself, how much more talent did he have than Brian Callahan has here, if Brian Callahan is tasked to do the same thing? I look at those drafts from the Titans, really the last 5 years. We're talking about 5 years that has yielded very little, and 3 years where we pretty much know that the jury is in and made the decision on 3 classes of drafts that has provided Roger McCreary and I don't know what else, honestly. I mean, that's it. So that's awfully hard to overcome, even if you have the best culture. True? And so I'm looking at what the Chiefs did. They traded for Alex Smith, who gave them, he got good mileage out of him. That was the right guy at the right time for them. They had the first pick in the draft they used for Eric Fisher, a right tackle. They had, for example, Eric Berry, an all-pro safety. Jamal Charles, who was a pretty darn good running back at the time. They had your basic Andy Reid receiving core of about 12 different guys who caught a lot of passes. None of them were superstars, but they were good. So you see what I'm saying? And I don't know the defensive players. I recognize Justin Houston as a Pro Bowler, Brandon Flowers. So I think he had more to work with to go with the fact that he's really good at the culture. I just look at this Titan situation. I see a very, very difficult job, even if you have, quote, a good culture.
Well, you're
I'm not
right.
sure that I don't know they have it, but I'm just saying it's tough.
You're right. That roster, when Reid took over, was a much better roster than what Brian Callahan is taking over now. But I think still fundamentally, the lessons and how how Andy Reid approached it, because I've seen it work. John Harbaugh sort of approached it in that same way, and look what it has done for them. But we can say that, listen, Andy was the right coach for Kansas City, and John was the right coach for Baltimore. The question is Brian the right coach to deliver this message and to foster this this culture with the Tennessee Titans? I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, maybe you all can try to answer Derek's question at 615-737-1025. Do the Titans have the infrastructure in place to rebuild their culture, a la the Kansas City Chiefs? Your confidence level that Brian Callahan has what it takes to do that. Let's just put this out there as a disclaimer. We are not directly comparing Brian Callahan to Andy Reid, but I just want to put that out there because I'm sure we're going to get a text or two like that. 615-737-1025. You know what? Let's give away those Rod Stewart tickets that I was talking about. David James, be caller number 2 at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Rod Stewart Thursday at Ascend Amphitheater. 615-737-1025. Almost got tongue-tied there. Caller number 2 gets a pair of tickets to see Rod Stewart at Ascend on Thursday. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. On Fridays, we're going to have our Take It to the Bank. It's always the last segment of the week, and we give you some things you can take to the bank. Sometimes they're comical, sometimes they're predictions, sometimes they're in between. D-Mace is the reigning champ, and just in a few weeks, once again, F&M Bank is going to sponsor our Take It to the Bank competition, and we hope you will be listening. F&M Bank has 20 locations in our listening area. All we ask is that you give them a shot. Find the nearest location to you by going to myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. Because their motto is banking made easy on purpose, and they've got a lot of tools to help you. Don't we all want to make our banking and our financial lives a lot simpler? They've got the tools to help you there. Myfmbank.com is the website. They've got locations everywhere, including Hopkinsville, Kentucky, where we have been flooded with texts from guys named Dustin. There's a lot of people not named Dustin up in Hopkinsville, but even the Dustins are welcome to go to F&M Bank up there. Just kidding, guys, but no question. They're everywhere. They want to help you. They're in your community. Banking made easy on purpose. We take it to the bank every Friday. Just picture 80-year-old Rod Stewart rocking this song. Caller number 2 is going. Ascend Amphitheater because of our show. Oh, yeah. Number 1 song, 1979.
Everybody
I
knew
remember.
this song.
Oh, yes.
Everybody knew this song. I don't
Oh,
care
yeah.
who you were. You knew this song.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations to Trevor.
Yes, Trevor.
Yes.
Trevor.
You're going to be rocking out to this song. And you're going to be saying, I want to thank Adam Vingan for that.
He'll be enjoying an 80-year-old man saying, "Do you think I'm sexy?" How do I answer this, Rod
And
Stewart?
if you want my body and you think I'm sexy, just let me know.
And there are going to be people in the
They're going to let him know.
They're going to let him know.
And you know what? If you did not have a chance to win those Rod Stewart tickets, I believe we are going to be giving away another pair. Indeed, we are tomorrow. So if you missed out, you'll have an opportunity tomorrow as well to see Rod Stewart at Ascent Amphitheater. So we're talking about this story in The Athletic about how Andy Reid helped turn around the Kansas City Chiefs. This was before Patrick Mahomes. As the story says, let me make sure I find this exact quote. While the arrival of quarterback Patrick Mahomes elevated the Chiefs to the next level, it was the culture and foundation in the early years that allowed Mahomes to thrive. So the story details some of the steps that Andy Reid took. Now, here's something interesting, gentlemen. You tell me if I'm off base here. When I was reading that section 4 about communication, and let me make sure I can find it here, hearing about how Andy Reid rarely yelled. He prided himself on never losing control. He emphasized informal communication. From afar, that sounds a lot like Brian Callahan. Now, again, this is from afar, being at practice, talking to people who cover the team on a daily basis. That sounds a lot like Brian Callahan. Now, as one texter points out, Slick on our text line points out, that Andy Reid also wasn't a rookie head coach when he joined the Kansas City Chiefs, had skins on the wall from his time with the Eagles. That is absolutely correct. But I hear that description of Reid, and I said to myself, that kind of sounds like Brian Callahan, doesn't it?
Yeah, but here's the problem, and the caller's right. You can be that person and feel that you can be yourself if that's you, and feel you don't need to change when you have the skins on the wall. And Andy's probably been this way his whole career, but I'm sure he's softened up some as he's become a head coach longer. John Harbaugh softened up some, not all the way. Neither one of these coaches, they're still firm in what they're doing, but they've softened up some to sort of, make themselves a different type of coach for this different generation of players. But what I see, obviously he doesn't have the skin on the wall, but one of the things on there, one of these lessons, the first lesson was, or the second lesson, I believe it was, not forgetting your past, not talking about it and not dwelling on it, but not forgetting it, also learning from it. Here's the problem, I think, with Brian Callahan, and it falls right in place. I think Brian Callahan is more like Andy Reid, but we can't forget Mike Vrabel. We can't forget the sternness and the smirkiness and the condescendingness that we once loved, and we started to hate when they started losing, but we loved it when he was winning. So we're doing opposite of what one of the lessons said do. Know your history, know your past, but don't repeat it. Don't keep reminding yourself of what used to be, because if you do, you can't move on as a organization from that old thing. And I think we all are sort of, because Vrabel did it, Callahan needs to be doing it too. But that's not Brian Callahan. And when he does it for once, everybody is high-fiving and having a party, me including.
I just remember, I will always remember this. My dear friend J.R. Lind, who used to write for the Nashville Scene, wrote an article about the Tennessee Titans in which he described Mike Vrabel as a quote-unquote human tribal tattoo. And I have never been able to forget that description, because it fits Mike Vrabel to a T. Brian Callahan is certainly not that. Let's go to Justin on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Justin, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, so I don't know that I've gotten your guys' opinion on this. And when you're talking about Callahan, I would assume that we all think that he is on the hot seat if they do not get more than, 3 wins this year and that Cam Ward looks good. But if he was not on the hot seat, would you guys sit Cam Ward this year, i.e. the Chiefs that you guys have been talking about? Just want to get your opinion. Thanks.
Thanks, Justin. Well,
I would play it with what I honestly thought was the right thing to do. I would have an open mind and not declare that Cam Ward is ready on day one. I would wait and see, and I would err on the side of caution. But I do think there are a lot of forces that are pointing towards he's going to be out there on day one. And that might end up being the right thing to do. But I think my number one concern right now is not Cam Ward. It's surrounding Cam Ward with a chance to be successful, putting him in a position to be successful and not worrying about the wins this year. This team is not going to go 11-5 like Andy Reid's first team. Andy Reid's first team, I just did a little research, inherited 4 Pro Bowlers on defense. And then they had 6 Pro Bowlers his first year on defense. Name me 6 guys on this Titans defense that could be Pro Bowlers.
Jeffrey Simmons.
There's one.
Maybe Tavondre Sweat.
Maybe. There's 2.
That's it.
We got to get
That's
to
it.
6.
Can't. Sorry.
L'Jarius Sneed?
No.
Nah.
We don't know. We don't even know if he's going to play.
Yeah, we don't even know if he's going to play.
So you see where I'm going. They had some Jimmies and Joes on that first team. Let's not forget that. This is a nice article, and it's got all the nice little things about leadership conferences and communication. He wouldn't have had any chance of winning if he had this particular group of Titans. I don't care. Maybe he could overachieve. They're not going 11-5. And they need the quicker that they realize that, that's why I am very concerned about the blame game, and all of this is going to go on Callahan if it doesn't go well, because he has inherited a mess. You know what else the Chiefs did well? They drafted well. Most of these guys, Eric Berry, and you can go down the list, they drafted those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have 3 empty drafts leading up to this. The Titans, they have a hole that they've got to climb out of that I think is next to impossible. It would be a great story if they're at all competitive this year. I think they're going to win around 5 games, and that wouldn't be bad. But it's how they look, but they don't have the talent that the Chiefs' first team had. So we can talk about culture all we want. It's hard to have a good culture when you're struggling, but when you don't have talent, you are going to struggle.
Let's run through some of your texts at 615-737-1025. And if you want to get in on it, you can at 615-737-1025. Alex from Franklin says, Callahan and Denard Wilson talk too much, but don't produce the results. That's problematic, that they both were not prepared for things to go bad. They made a bad situation worse with their own mouths. Wes in Clarksville says, are they even letting Callahan build a team? Or is it Brinker and Borgonzi running the show and Callahan is just a passenger in the car with no seatbelt or airbags? To me, it feels like Callahan is the substitute teacher of a school class. He's there, but has no control over the classroom. Matt says, in my job, I have been put in 2 different locations where I had to help shift the culture. It is not easy at all. And I believe the Titans will have a rough go for another season or 2 until they get the people in place that will buy in and support the culture.
Well, the last texter has a point. It's going to, and like Willie said, I mean, this roster, regardless of right now, whether we believe they can get the job done or not, I think he's trending, at least to me, that he's going to be the quarterback that this franchise needs. How that look, I don't know, and no one can tell you how it's going to look, but I do believe he's going to be that guy. But even with him being that guy, the roster doesn't have enough young, proven talent. So it's going to take this team a minute to sort of dig themselves out of this hole that they're in. So it helps when, some of these younger guys can, get on instead of walking, get on an escalator or something and travel a little bit faster as far as their, development and processing this offense and defense. Because if they don't, honestly, this is, I would say this is probably more like a mediocre to below that team. If those young guys can't get on and learn very quickly. And I know that's putting a lot on these young guys, but this is where they're at. They can't bring in 10 new veterans that that have done something in this league and has been in the league for 5, 6, 7 years. They can't do that. So you work with what you got, and hopefully these, especially the 2 young receivers, because you're going to need your quarterback to have as many weapons as he possibly can. So if those 2 young receivers can come on, that will help this team out tremendously.
You know who was a good person to have this conversation with? Trevor Matich. And we will do that coming up next. Trevor Matich will join us to discuss this and many other topics regarding the Tennessee Titans. That is coming up next at 615-737-1025. Trevor Matich up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Pleased to be joined on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com by Trevor Maddich, brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So, Trevor, let's go back to Saturday, the Titans preseason opener, a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cam Ward plays 2 series. Looked solid. That's what our general consensus was. As you went back and watched the film, what did you see from Cam Ward? What did you like? What didn't you like? Let us know.
Well, Adam, I thought he did fine. It was a good start. There are things that he can learn. I did not see it like a lot of the fans saw it, where he's the second coming of Shedeur Sanders, apparently, and a superstar in the making. I don't think he showed that in this game, but he didn't really need to. He got in and out of the huddle. He got everybody lined up right, and he didn't freak out. The moment wasn't too big for him. So I thought that was a good start. You know, the passes he threw to Calvin Ridley, you know, in the second drive, he had 3 completions, 2 and 3 consecutive completions, and it was really good. But, you know, if you look at it a little bit more closely from a standpoint, not of nitpicking the young man, but of looking at it from a comparison to what he'll need to do once the regular season gets going, I looked at it this way. You know, the first one was a throw to Ridley sort of on the right side, about 15, 20 yards down the field. He was wide open. Ridley caught the ball, turned and ran for a bunch more. And, big play, right? Well, that was a busted coverage. And the coverage didn't quite know what was going on. And I think you saw that when Cam Ward just kind of double clinched it a little bit. He wasn't quite sure what he was looking at because it wasn't an NFL coverage. It was all messed up. And to his credit, Ridley found a hole in the zone, and he sat down and he stopped there and got the ball, and off he went. Right. The next one was a throw to the left sideline where he layered it over an underneath defender to Ridley going down to the ground on the sideline on the left, and that was a nice throw based on what was there to be had. But the defensive back was a rookie who was on the underneath coverage on that one. And he got mesmerized by a short stop route right in front of him, and he stalled there instead of sagging back underneath the out route behind him. And so that was a busted coverage too. But give Cam credit. He saw both of those, and he hit them both, and they were both nice throws. And then the third one was a deeper crossing route from right to left to Ridley. That was a really nice throw. I mean, that wasn't a busted coverage. That was pretty tight coverage, and it was a really nice play. But I thought overall, you look at some of the things that he did that really were helped by mistakes by Tampa's secondary, and then you look at the fact that Tampa wasn't able to get any pressure on him because the starting offensive line of the Titans did a great job against the backup pass rushers of Tampa and just shut them down. But with that, you see that and these are things that he can work on, when he had plenty of time to throw, he would throw sometimes off his back foot. He would throw fading away from the throw, even though there was plenty of space in the pocket from an NFL standard to step up and use proper technique and proper footwork. There will be all kinds of times when he won't be able to use proper technique and footwork because the pass rush will not allow him to do that. But in this game, you know, he did a bunch of cattywampus college improvisation with his footwork when he didn't need to do it. And that'll affect him when he's got tight coverage and, when you're facing NFL starters when the regular season rolls around. So these are things that I thought that he did well, some things that I thought that might have looked really good on TV, but, they're basically a beginning to build off of. And overall, I would give him a B. And it's a good place for him to be right now as he moves forward.
As our resident offensive lineman, let's discuss Peter Skoronski for a moment. Pro Football Focus predicted Skoronski will be the most improved guard in the NFL this season, noting how well he played down the stretch last season. As you evaluate Skoronski, what is his ceiling in your mind?
Football. And I think he, in consideration for All-Pro. In other words, it wouldn't surprise me if he was second team All-Pro at some point, and maybe better. And so the difference between Pro Bowl and All-Pro is that, there's one All-Pro left guard, and there's a bunch of Pro Bowl guards, and so there's your difference. Yeah, but anyway, the thing of it is, when he first came into the league, he ended up having his appendix out right before the season, I think, and that affected his physical ability to do what he needed to do. And then, ever since he first came into the league, up until this moment right now, he was playing with some combination of left tackles next to him who were abysmal or inexperienced or both. And center, he had Aaron Brewers, a 270-pound center, who was going to get tossed around like a rag doll a lot of times, and other guys that rotated in over the course of his first couple of years in the league that really weren't starting caliber centers in the NFL. So he's sitting there at left guard, which is a new position for him. He played left tackle in college. And he has nobody that he can rely on as an anchor physically and then mentally and from an experience standpoint next to him at left tackle. And the same thing next to him on the other side at center. And so he's trying to help those guys when he's a rookie trying to figure out a new position. And, it took him a while to kind of figure out how to play his position. And down the stretch last year, I think he did a really good job. I think he improved. And I think now that he has got a legitimate, bona fide, experienced, talented left tackle in Dan Moore, and when Lloyd Cushenberry comes back from injury, he'll have the same thing at center. And all of a sudden, he won't have to be the guy that's going to hold up three positions. He'll have to hold up his position, and he'll have plenty of help on both sides for the first time in his career. So I'm very interested to see how he performs in that scenario. And do keep this in mind, too. This is not an excuse for him or anybody else, but he was one of the best offensive tackles in the nation at Northwestern coming out of college. I mean, he was phenomenal in North. He wasn't really an NFL left tackle because of his arm length and some other things. But in college, that's what he played, and he was really good. Well, when you move inside the guard, it is a completely different world because the guys you're playing against have a different build than the ones you're playing against at tackle. Normally, when you're at a left tackle, you're playing against the taller, more lithe, more athletic pass rusher types. When you're a guard, you're playing against those 330-pound warthogs. Plus, when you are at tackle, you've got lots of space. And so your problem is managing the space and the angles. But things tend to happen kind of slowly because there's so much space out there. When you're in a guard or center, for that matter, everything is much closer to you at the snap, and everything happens much faster. And so your technique has to be different because your opponent's technique is going to be different. You've got to read it and execute it faster. All these things complicate learning a new position in the NFL for the first time. In Skoronski's case, left guard from left tackle in college, and doing it without an NFL center on one side and without an NFL tackle on the other side. And so I think Skoronski is in position right now to make a massive leap forward, not just because he's improved individually, but because now he's got people around him that know what they're doing.
Trevor, you're right. I watched Peter the last preseason game as well as in practice, and he looks like the most improved offensive lineman. Right now, he is the best offensive lineman the Tennessee Titans have. He looks like he's moving a lot more fluid. It looks as if he's changed his body composition and it's allowed him to move a lot better. And that comes too with experience. But you mentioned the center position. Corey Levin is in now, and I think Corey Levin is doing a good job. But we know that he's not the long-term starter. Cushenberry, he said he will be ready he's trending toward being ready for the first game of the season. How important is it going to be that he get into practice as quickly as possible, especially as this offensive line starts to gel?
Yeah, D-Mays, I think it's important that Cushenberry not get into practice as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. I think the worst thing they can do with him is rush him back and have that Achilles tendon have a setback in terms of injury. With a big, powerful Clydesdale like that, Achilles is a very difficult injury to deal with because of the maximal pressures that are being put on you. And it's not just like you run straight forward, right? And there's pressure when you do that. The problem is that when you make contact with a defender, he's pushing back on you. And the angles are slightly different as you push on him and he moves and he pushes back on you. And all these things are transmitted through to the ground, through your body, down through your ankles into your feet. And what controls all that is your Achilles tendon. So I think that he would want to play against Denver because that was his former team. But even though he might be telling the team how ready he is to play that game, it would be an enormous mistake for the team to listen to him. And I would like to see him maybe play a series or two in that game, if that. And then a week or two later, now start to fold him in. They do have the luxury to be able to do that because Corey Levin is one of the best backup centers in the NFL. I think he's a solid option if you don't have Cushenberry there. He's not Cushenberry, but as a backup center, he's very, very good. And 3 of the first 4 games, starting with Denver, you're going against some of the best defenses in the league. I mean, Denver led the league in sacks last year, and they were fantastic all around as a defense. And so, not having him for that first game, the first several games, if they decide to be cautious with Cushenberry's return, would hurt their ability to win. But what would hurt their ability to win more would be if they rush him back and he re-injures that Achilles, and now they don't have him for the rest of the year. And so I think that to make the best of a bad situation, they need to rely on Levin and let Cushenberry ease his way back, unless the doctors say and Cushenberry says legitimately that he is ready to go. And that's a possibility too. But if there's any question at all, they cannot play that guy yet.
We're talking to Trevor Matich from ESPN. And Trevor, this will be good because of the way you study the college game as well as the pro game. I'm fascinated by the Anthony Richardson situation. We looked it up the other day. Anthony Richardson and Cam Ward were born 3 days apart. But you've got one guy in his 3rd year and one guy just getting started. But you've got the Colts. You read what's being said right now, and it seems like they're actually tinkering with the idea of almost moving on if he doesn't make any progress this year. Is it simply that he should have stayed in college and done what a Bo Nix and a Cam Ward have done and play more college games? Was that in retrospect a big mistake?
Yeah, a lot of people loved Anthony Richardson coming out of college when he did as an NFL quarterback. Certainly the Colts did, better than the 4th pick in the draft. But I didn't. I did not see him being anywhere near ready to be an NFL quarterback, even though NFL systems now have evolved more towards the college game so that college quarterbacks could have more success early in their careers. But that also means that they better have that success or the team might just move on. With the rookie salary cap that's been in place for a long time now, it's not that hard to move on from a quarterback that you don't think is going to be who you thought he was going to be. Look what the Bears did. They drafted Justin Fields, was it number 1 pick, I think. And then they gave up on him during his rookie contract. And he's a New York Jet now. And the Bears took Caleb Williams, and they might have to move up on him. Remember that Caleb Williams didn't play at all in their first preseason game. He did have a long session before the game run by the head coach of the Bears with the 2 starting receivers, and he was poor then to throw on time to a spot, especially in the red zone. And remember, there's no defenders, just one receiver. All he had to do was just simulate the snap and throw an out. And he wasn't able to be consistent in throwing those outs accurately. And they didn't let him play in the game. And I've got to wonder if part of the reason is they didn't want him to embarrass himself on national television. Well, so they're having all kinds of problems right now with Caleb Williams, who was also the number 1 pick in the draft. So you go back to the Colts because, that's the Titans play them twice a year, same division, all that. The thing about Anthony Richardson is that in college, he was a great runner. He had a really strong arm. I mean, if he stood inside a barn, he could throw the ball right through the wall. You just didn't know which wall he was going to hit from inside the barn. And every once in a while in college, he'd drop one on a receiver running down the field, but more often he just missed the guy if he was running down the field. But he was able to make a bunch of plays that the defense couldn't stop because of his legs. Well, that's mildly interesting. So move him to tight end or running back until he shows that he could do it with his arm. And so, I think Richardson would have done himself a lot of favors by staying in college. But the thing about Cam Ward is that he's played so much in college, so much more than Richardson did in different scenarios with different coaches, and he was able to assimilate what he needed to assimilate to be very successful in Incarnate Word, and then transfer to Washington State, and then transfer to Miami. And Anthony Richardson never had any of those options. Anthony Richardson, all his life, was able to make up for a very raw and unpolished game as a passer with his legs. And that's great in high school. It's good in college. And in the NFL, it's inadequate. And so I kind of was glad when the Colts drafted him, because I thought they had basically wasted a pick. And it would be a long time before the Titans defense would have to worry about a quality Anthony Richardson on the other side.
Trevor Matich, brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters. Trevor, great stuff as always. We'll chat next week.
Thanks, guys.
Always a pleasure to have Trevor Matich on the program. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Titans president and CEO Burke Nihill discussed PSL sales for the new stadium in an interview with A to Z Sports. There was something he said in that interview that raised our eyebrows. We will discuss that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace Finn, Ganadonic 1025, The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Burke Nihill, Titans president and CEO, recently did an exclusive interview with Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. The headline, a quote from Burke Nihill, "Think Paradise Park meets ESPN Zone." That kind of gave me the shudders a little bit, talking about the fan experience at the new Nissan Stadium. But there was a lot more in this interview with Easton Freeze. And correct me if I'm wrong, Burke Nihill was also on the Titans preseason broadcast talking about a lot of these same issues.
He used the Paradise Park meets, what was it?
ESPN Zone.
ESPN Zone. So it was clear that he had talking points that he was going to stick to in both interviews. So I thought it was interesting to read it because I had read it earlier that day, Easton's piece, and then I heard him regurgitate the same exact points during the broadcast.
Derek, do you remember the ESPN Zone in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore?
Yes, I did. Did I go much? No, I didn't.
I've been there.
I think I've been there once.
Do they still exist, ESPN zones?
I don't know.
I
They
don't think so.
You don't?
Because they used to be around. There was one in New York, right?
Is there one still on the Disney property? There has to be.
There was one in
If
DC.
there's not one in Disney,
Yeah, something's wrong.
then
Yeah,
it's
something's
done.
wrong. Yeah, they're
Like
done.
that would be the last place because
Exactly.
ESPN is owned by
Exactly.
Disney. Like, they
So it
gotta
should
have
be
it.
one at Disney or in
Yeah.
Orlando, period.
I remember Planet Hollywood? There was a lot of
Yes.
Planet Hollywoods that they're
There's
not
one
around
downtown.
anymore.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Hard
Yep,
Rock
yep.
Cafe still going strong. Nevertheless, the one thing that we have heard from all of you when it comes to the new stadium is about keeping new Nissan Stadium affordable for the average fan. Because as we all know, when a new stadium opens, prices skyrocket, and the casual fan, not casual, the average fan may have a harder time affording tickets. Easton Freeze writes, quote, "A lot of the feedback I got early on from fans in reaction to the Titan sales process was disappointment along these lines in terms of the average family of fans being able to attend the game. Folks were unhappy with the price increase they saw on paper, but I wanted to give the organization a chance to speak to this complaint, and here's what Nihill had to say. Quote, there is something of a template for how you go about building a new building, selling a new building. And you know, one of the things I've loved about Amy's leadership is that she's allowed us to just think differently and be different. And we've definitely taken that approach in terms of the building we're going to build, the way we're going to try to bring it to life, and the dream that we have for what this building will be. And that dream was never going to be filling it with 60,000 new people. The dream was always going to be that this is the next great chapter of the Tennessee Titans organization. And that means that we've got to try to bring as many people with us into that next generation as we can. The interview continues, and here is something that, Willie, I know when I sent this to you, you highlighted. More from Nihill. Quote, as we sit here today, that number has worked out to about $60 million in PSL credits that we've just given to existing PSL members as an incentive and an invitation to come with us into the next generation. That wildly exceeds what our projections were, but we're happy about that. To give you some very specific data points on dispelling the idea that this building is not for our core fan. Even once we decided to kind of bring pricing to what was something that felt right to us, which meant PSLs as low as $750, which was not something that our consultants were recommending. They still expected that based on past stadium work they've done, maybe 40 to 50% of current season ticket members would come over to the current building. A year into PSL sales, we're pacing at 70%. So 70% of our season ticket members have actually purchased PSLs in the new building. And to tell you we agonized about how to honor season ticket members is an understatement, because we just never felt like we turned a corner until basically the very end. But it was that one point, Willie, PSLs as low as $750, but not really spelling out how much it's actually going to cost.
Well, because I don't know how many of the seats are $750, but I think when you get to the premium seating, there is quite a big hike from what I've been told from fans that are trying to make this decision. the fans that have been, in a lot of cases, the early PSL holders in the old stadium. And I do think we have to keep in mind, to be fair to the Titans, the Nissan Stadium, or the Coliseum, which was then Adelphia Coliseum and so on, was built for $275 million, right? It was bare bones. This is a $2 billion stadium that has less seats, right? So this was going to be tough. And I'm taking it as a given that it should be a spectacular venue to watch a football game or any other type of event, right? This should be state of the art. We're certainly paying for it, right? $2 billion. That's coming from a lot of different sources from us, the people, right? So I sure hope it's really nice. So the trick is, how do you try to keep what they're saying? Because what he's saying is an important point, right? You want to have some core people that care, that are building a home field advantage for your team there. So what steps have you taken? But I find it interesting. It's a lot of word salad in there. There's a lot of big words.
A lot of corporate jargon.
A lot of corporate stuff in there. So I just thought it would be a good idea to ask the people, the fans, who have maybe been to, what do you call it, Titans House, where you go in and you get the spiel, because you won't find a list of the ticket prices publicly right now. They give you little glimpses, like you just highlighted. The most inexpensive one is $750, but they don't have a menu that you can go look online and say, here are the prices of the tickets.
See, this is what I find interesting, and I get up to as low as $750. Is that after the credit and that,
right.
that,
but
that they
they
just
act
bought?
like these bad guy corporate people or consultants, bad guys. Oh, don't give the fans credit. Well, that should be a no-brainer that an original PSL holder should get that credit,
Yes,
right?
you should get the credit.
I mean, I'm not going to applaud them for that.
Especially if you're asking
that's the
me,
common sense, decent thing to do.
if you're asking me still to buy PSLs to a stadium that is existing now, you should be giving me credit. If I just bought a PSL last year to this stadium, well, you shouldn't have done it, but they still selling them, and that credit should go to the new building. But even with that, how much are the new seats going to cost if I want the same seats in the same area? See, that's the thing.
And it doesn't translate a lot because it's a different configuration. And as Nihil was saying on the broadcast, there's less seats, there's more premium seats, and the upper deck seats are closer. So this is what he used.
There's no
the term
bad seat in the house.
That's what he said. He's pushing that. There's no bad seats. So the upper deck seats, even though they're the upper deck, are still going to be expensive because they're 38% on average closer to the field. So that's the justification. And once again, I get it. It's a smaller venue and it's state of the art. It's going to be more expensive, but it's still a fine line. And so I'm surprised. And of course, he sets the bar low by saying these consultants, the bad guys,
the Bobs
from Office Space are saying, you're not going to get more than 40 or 50. Hey, we're getting 70%. But I'm also curious, how can you say you're pacing for 70%? Either you are at 70%, and there's a lot of people still weighing that because you're nowhere close to finishing this process, right? You got 2 years before. So I'm not sure how you get that you're pacing to 70%.
Well, they're pacing to 70% by the time the stadium open, or are you pacing 70% based on your goals of selling many?
It's very careful language, and I would love to know how you arrive at that, and they're never going to show us, right? It's their business. It's not our business. That's why I want to ask the people, the season ticket holders, the people that want to go,
listening right now.
I want to know what your experience has been, and do you plan on going to the new stadium? Like, especially if you are a current PSL holder in the Nissan Stadium, the current version of the old stadium, right? Have you gone through this process, and what is your outlook right now? Have you already made your decision? Are you still weighing your decision? How much time do you have to do this?
Oh,
Because
they
at
got
some
forever.
point
They got forever to do it
Well,
because they ain't
but
gonna
at
sell
some-
them all out.
Well, but at some point they're going to open it up to everybody else, right? And then
Listen,
the
anybody,
corporate giants will come in.
anybody that can buy can buy. Period. Because I'm sure the corporate giants own some of those PSLs in the old stadium, and they're not doing anything. Which I get it. I don't blame them. They're not doing anything but going to those meetings and they're buying up those seats again because they were PSL holders, and rightfully so. This is what happens, and I get, because I know just about every call it may be down the middle, but some people are going to say, hey, listen, because of the escalation in the prices, the percentage, I just can't buy my tickets to the new stadium. I'm going to rat it out for this stadium and I'm just going to watch. But then there are some that's going to say, hey, if I had 4 PSL seats, I'm going to go down to 2 because they cost so much, but I'm still going to support my
Right.
team.
And so
I
how does
get
that
it.
figure into the 70%? People that have done
Exactly. I get it. But this is what happens when you let a vampire in. They suck you dry. You've let the vampire in and he's sucking you dry. And we know it's happening. But we can't get away from it. Now we are slaves to the football team. That's just what we are. Me, Willie, Adam, all of us, we are.
But there is a point where you do get priced out, right? And I do wonder.
They'll never
if-
price
if-
anybody
but-
out.
But he's saying that
Unfortunately,
70.
Willie,
But I still think that I want to see how that math works. If you have 70%
Mhm.
of the current PSL holders, I also another question I had as I'm reading this and watching the interview. A lot of the PSLs, I think it's fair to say, went into the hands of ticket brokers, right? People who they buy the PSL and then they're in the business of selling the season tickets to anybody, right? Which often ends up in the hands of the other team's fans who are coming in, right? Those aren't Titans fans. Those are people trying to make money off. They're investors, right? So how does that factor in? Because those aren't your diehard Titans fans. Those are ticket brokers, right? And that just happened over time. It's hard to control. I know they've had internal issues on how to address that. So what factor is that in this process? But I want to get down to just the regular fans who have been going to that stadium for over 20 years. I'm sure by now they have had the opportunity to go through this process. What has your experience been like?
Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, where Crazy Billy is waiting.
Billy.
Crazy Billy, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, section 115, Charlie 8 at 9. That's near the south end zone, right on the 10-yard line. You know, I'm the kind of fan that carved a Titans T in my head and had my barber do that the day that my good friend Derek caught that touchdown. And yeah, well, we won't talk about it. I still love you, Derek. Anyway, I've been through the process. Those PSLs cost $3,000 a piece. I bought them from the original PSL owner about 2 years in when the stadium opened, and I've been there ever since. This year I did not renew my seats, not because of the team's record, the players, the quarterbacks, but how the management has handled the fans. I did not go and get a new PSL in the new stadium because it would be $50,000 a seat for me to get a comparable location without any understanding of what the ticket price would be either. So I just forfeited. I tried to sell my PSL last year at half price, didn't even get a bite. As far as for that 70% that they touted, is a bunch of bunk, because all of the people around me have been gone for a long time, which were the original PSL owners.
Hey, Crazy Billy, how many
sir.
PSLs did you have?
2.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Billy.
So, and the reason why I did this was for my retirement. I'm retired now, and they just priced me out of the market, even though they kept pushing me to go to the, to the stratosphere. my eyes are not that good anymore. So
Thank you,
Thank
Crazy
you for
Anyway.
Thank you for the
Appreciate it.
call, Billy. Let's quickly go to Pam on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Pam, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hi. I've been a season ticket holder since day one, and I had 3 to start with, and then I went down to 2. And I have been to Titan's house. I had a seat for $500. The new seat, and I was on the first row of the loge. So I am again on the first row of the upper deck. I don't know if they're calling it the loge or not. But so my $500 seat is now $2,500. And I did get $1,000 credit, 500, times 2. And I was happy with that. So I don't know what to say about people who aren't happy about it, but I do think that the seats in the lesser pricing, I mean, to me, it's been over 20 years. I did expect to pay more, and $2,500 for the PSL, I thought was reasonable.
Thank you for the call,
Good.
Pam.
See?
This is the kind of feedback that I think is real to cross-check what he says on the thing, because I do think there will be some people that feel like Pam did and say, I expect to pay a little more because it's going to be a nicer building and it's going to be more amenities and more bathrooms and better access to concessions, which are woefully poor in that area of the current stadium, right? So you're paying for better stuff for sure. And so but the caller before that, Crazy Billy, I think there are a lot of people in his case that were sitting lower, and I just don't see how you can arrive at 70% if a lot of people, because for him to keep his seats, there's a bigger hike, I think, than for Pam, who's already sitting up high and is going to get something in the terrace level. Burke Nihill was saying he thinks the terrace level is a really good buy. He bought them for his family, which makes some sense, right? But everybody can't sit in somebody's got to sit in the lower seats. And so that's 50% of the stadium right there.
That's why I said the NFL, these teams, they will never price people out. You just may not be able to go, but they'll never price people out, because ultimately what happens is, especially if your team start winning, those PSLs are going to be bought up, period, by corporations. They are. And then from there, they're going to sell the seats individually. Now, the Titans want more Titans fans to buy the PSL, but because of the price hike, some people are choosing to be like Pam and say, okay, I do it. But then some people like Crazy Bill are saying, I'm not going to do it. Well, they've already banked that already. They've already thought of all these problems that are happening. I'm sure the think tank, they thought of all of them. And they know eventually that they're going to get those PSLs sold, but it's going to be big corporations. And then what is going to happen? The same that has been happening from season in and season out. You're going to get more not Titans fans at particular games than you are Titans fans. That's just Buffalo, Chicago, who else? Pittsburgh, games like that. You're going to see a big group of that team in that building, especially if this team doesn't start winning.
615-737-1025. Burke Nihill, Titans president and CEO, says in an interview with A to Z Sports that a year into PSL sales, the Titans are pacing at 70% in terms of current season ticket members coming over to the current building. We want to hear your experience. 615-737-1025. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. 1025 The Game.
Derek Mason here, and if you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible or nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. Listen, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they want to help you get it all repaired or better yet, replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support you at an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fusen, and you can find them in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025 The Game, talking an interview that Burke Nihill, Titans president and CEO, did with Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports, talking about new Nissan Stadium. The quote that we are discussing is that according to Burke Nihill, a year into PSL sales, the Titans are pacing at 70% in terms of current season ticket members who are coming over from the current Nissan Stadium. Also, that PSLs are as low as $750.
As low as.
As low as. I don't like the sound of
Yeah,
that,
neither.
as low as.
Neither.
But we want your experience at 615-737-1025. Let's go to Benjamin, who has been waiting patiently on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Benjamin, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, hi, Adam, Vinny, and Donick. D-Mace, Vinny, and Donick. I have a good story about a PSL visiting the Titans house. So I have 4 tickets in the club section currently. And so I was included in the first wave. And the first wave was to sell existing club season ticket holders club season tickets. And they have marketing names for the 2 club sections, but I'll just call it the exclusive club and the more exclusive club. And the more exclusive club is around the 50-yard line. And the folks there in the new stadium will be able to see the players come into the stadium at the games, and I guess exit the stadium too. For the exclusive club, and that runs from the 10-yard line through the middle of the stadium to the other 10-yard line. That's going to be inclusive, but drinks only, so it won't include food, whereas the more exclusive will include food. So the more exclusive club was way out of my price range, and I looked at those prices, and honestly, I don't remember what they were. They were so high. But the exclusive club, the one that ran from the 10 to the 10, excluding like right around the 50, and I was looking right around the 10, it was $20,000 a PSL. So for me, since I had 4, it would have been $80,000, and the ticket prices were about $400 a game. So you're looking at $4,000 a ticket. So for me, they wanted me to pay $100,000, close to $100,000, after they gave me the $4,500 credit. It still was close to $100,000. So needless to say, I didn't purchase that time. And they called me back a second time, and I went. And this time they were offering me the end zone, and the end zone was at $15,000 a PSL, still outside of my price range. Because remember, I only paid $1,500 a PSL for the club. And so I said, well, $15,000 out of my price range. Do you have anything else? And they said, oh, well, we do. And the 200 level, those are $7,500 a PSL. And the 200 level only runs from about the 20-yard line through the end zone, because the 200 level now has mostly suites and so forth in it. So I said, $7,500. Well, that's a little out of my price range, but I might be interested in that area, because that's where my current tickets are. I'm in section 230. So yeah, I might be interested in those. And so they showed me the inventory, and almost all of the inventory was gone. And so I was in the first wave, and then they brought me back, and I said, well, hey, where did all the inventory go? I was an existing club season ticket holder. We thought I was gotten a little priority coming back. And they said, well, here's what happened. So when we offered the tickets to the people who were in the end zone at $15,000 a PSL, a lot of those folks couldn't afford that. And so we offered them the 200 level at $7,500 a PSL. I said, oh, okay. Well, hey, how about this? I don't know that I'm interested in what's left over in the 200 level. So why don't you go ahead and let me look at the 300 level? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, Benjamin, we can't do that. Those aren't on sale yet. And the people who are in the 300 level will get the first dibs at those. And I said, well, hold on a second. That doesn't sound fair, because what you just told me was that here I am in the club, and I was offered ticket prices and PSL prices that I couldn't afford, and yet you all didn't offer me the 200 level at the time, but you're telling me that you had folks in the end zone on the 100 level who couldn't afford those PSLs at $15,000, and you offered them the 200 level. I'm really just asking to be put on the same playing field, no pun intended, as the folks that were in the 100 level. Just offer me the next one up. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that. Anyway, so they didn't. And they offered me to come back a third time. And so I did. And I went and looked at the 300 level and the 400 level. And like you all said, it's, these seats are supposed to be 38% closer to the stadium. They really marketed that. And so I suspect I'm going to be close in the 300 level to what I was in the 200 level. I ended up buying right around the 15-yard line. Those were $3,000 a PSL. I was able to purchase all of them at the same time instead of, spreading the payment out over a period of time. And so they gave me a 10% discount. And then it just went on in the 300 level. It went from 3,000 around, say, the 20-yard line. And as you got towards the middle, it was like 4,500 to 5,000 and maybe higher. And then as you went from the 20-yard line to the end zone, it went from 3,000 to 2,500 and lower. The 400 level was where the 750 PSL prices were.
Thank you for the call, Benjamin. Incredibly detailed.
Yeah, I mean,
that was
listen,
quite the process.
That was, and that is why I said that you may not be able to buy them, we may not be able to buy them, but they're going to get somebody to buy them, because it's almost essentially what they're trying to do is, which is smart, I in a sense, I guess, from a financial standpoint. They're just trying to get those people in that 2-3. They're trying to get them to stay within that area and that price range. They don't want the 15,000 to now jump to 3,000 per seat. They don't want that. They want the 15,000 to maybe go to 75, but we ain't gonna let you go any lower than that yet. We want to try to pressure you into buying the tickets. Good. Hey, I almost got like that one year in Vegas, going to visit a timeshare because we wanted some tickets. They kept sending us from room to room, and we kept saying, no, just give us the tickets. But in this case, either you're going to say no a few times, and then eventually they're going to get you to that price. But where are the $750 PSLs?
Well, that's what I hear a lot is exactly his story, that a lot of people have moved up.
Mm-hmm.
They've moved up the stadium.
But where are the $750 PSLs?
At some point, you're squeezing some people out, I would think. It's hard to maintain if you're moving from expensive seats to less expensive seats. You're pushing some of the people who were sitting in the less expensive seats, theoretically, out of the picture, right?
Yeah, because they're more to them. They're more than what they paid originally. So you're gonna try to put them somewhere else, and then eventually, if they can't pay for those, well, you're gonna push them out. So it's almost like affordable housing. Eventually, they get you out of there, and they get everybody else. And wow, man, goodness gracious! But anyway,
and this is a league wide thing.
It's not just a Titans thing.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. It's not a Titans thing. It's the league. Anytime you get a new stadium, unfortunately, this is one of the things that's going to happen. Even, down in Atlanta, they knew it was going to happen. So what did their owner do? The owner said, listen, we're going to sell food at a discounted price because we know that you're going to pay these tickets cost a percentage more. And we know a lot of people are going to have to decide, to buy them or not. But at least when they come to the stadium, we're not going to hit them over their head with prices for a hot dog and a Coke either, or some popcorn. We're going to try to lessen the blow there, because you're just paying for a game to enter into that building when you buy those PSLs and that ticket. We ain't talking about the food you're going to have to pay. You got to pay for the food. Even when you're in a suite, you still got to pay for the food. So again, I understand that when you get a new stadium, this is what's going to happen. So I'm not upset with them, but I'm sure they know under their model that they're going to lose some of their fan base, at least coming to the building. Some of the older fan base, they're going to lose a portion of those people, and they understand that.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your thoughts on this. But coming up next, speaking of the stadium, Derek said something last week that sparked something in me. It is time for an Adam Vingan big ass glasses moment because I did the research. I put in the work when it comes to new stadiums and how quickly teams turn things around once they start playing in new stadiums. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D Mace Finn Ganadonic 1025 The Game. Tomorrow, we will be joined by the Athletics media reporter, Richard Deitch. Willie and Derek, I believe you used to have Richard Deitch on your program on a weekly basis.
Oh,
We
yes.
did. Yes.
So
He is excellent.
Enjoyed it.
looking forward to having Richard Deitch with us. A lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to media deals, the NFL, ESPN. There was a huge deal today with UFC and Paramount Plus. So we'll get into all of that with Richard Deitch tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us at 5 o'clock. But Derek, you mentioned something the other day talking about the new stadium. You mentioned something the other day about how teams that enter new stadiums get a bump. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity for me to put on my big ass glasses, sit down and do the research. So here's what I did. There have been 17 stadiums that have opened since the year 2000. 19 teams play in those 17 stadiums because the Rams and Chargers share a stadium and the Giants and Jets share a stadium. So I wanted to see how long it took on average for teams to make the playoffs for the first time after entering a new stadium. That average among the 19 teams was roughly 2 years. 2 years. So the Titans enter the new stadium in 2027. Better make the playoffs by 2029. How realistic do you think that is?
I think it's realistic. It depends on how they draft. You show me some good drafts between now and 2028. And I think, first of all, making the playoffs now that there's the extra wild card is not unheard of. There's always going to be a team that slides in to a wild card at 10-7 and you make the playoffs or you win a weaker division. So making the playoffs isn't the end game. So I think it's quite reasonable, especially if they got the Cam Ward part of this right. If it doesn't, you see what's going on with the Colts right now. And so much talk right now of them getting ready to cut bait on the 4th overall pick in the draft, just a couple of years into it, like the 3rd year into it. That's what could really set you back. So realistic? Yeah, it's very realistic for sure. And if they don't, then that probably means they missed on Cam Ward or they've had several more really bad drafts.
By the way, a lot of these teams made the playoffs in either the first year of the stadium or the second year of the stadium. Here are a couple of outliers. The Texans, their stadium, NRG Stadium, opened in 2002. They didn't make the playoffs until 2011, but they were an expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
So take that for what it's worth. The Lions did not make it to the playoffs at Ford Field until 2011. Ford Field opened in 2002.
They might as well have been an expansion team.
That's probably
that was
true.
So bad.
They had some issues back then.
Yes,
the 49ers, Levi Stadium opened in 2014. The Niners did not make the playoffs for the first time until 2019. And the Bengals in 2005 made the playoffs for the first time when Paycor Stadium, what is now known as Paycor Stadium, opened in 2000. But the average is roughly 2 years.
And that's what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't going to be long. And I was basing that off of, what we did and what some other teams did right along that time. They were building new stadiums or redoing them. But you're right. And this is what, we've mentioned this before in past shows. This roster being a certain way as they are entering into the new stadium. I thought, and I still believe, that it's very imperative for the Tennessee Titans to have a winning team once they enter that building. They can't go into that building with a question mark or a losing team. They just can't. That will crush the fan base. But looking back on past drafts, in particular, started with 2023 now. As I'm starting to look at it now, Peter Skoronski seems to be, barring injury, he seems to be a keeper. Tyjae Spears, because he can't stay healthy, he's a guy that they want to explode. They want to sign to a new deal, but for some reason, he just keeps getting hurt. J.C. Latham looks okay. T-Sweat looks like he's going to be a player. So that's the last two drafts. So you got 3 players that you can start to build on. And then you look at this year's draft. You're hoping Cam Ward plays out. You open that Femi, develops into the player you believe he can be. And then you hope the 2 young wide receivers can find their footing in this league within the next year and a half. So they're building a foundation. It's not solid yet, but they're building a foundation. And those guys that I named, if they can be productive and headed to a second contract as the quarterback is developing as well, I think they're going to set themselves up to be a playoff team as they're entering the building. But believe me, they have no margin of error here. They don't. If these players don't develop, don't expect a team ready for the playoffs when that stadium opens.
By drafting the quarterback number 1 and not, again, this is nothing personally against Cam Ward, but you see what it is with what's happening with Richardson as an example of when you have that many eggs in that basket, and it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, right? They've got one way to success, and that is if Cam Ward ends up being special. So they really, truly believe that will be the case. If it is, then that's good. But you talk about all these draft picks. There's only one way to get good, and that's the draft well. You cannot buy in this day and age of the NFL. You can't buy a good team. You have to draft it and develop it. So they don't have that many picks. There's a lot that's riding on this. So I think I would have taken the picks. That would give you more ways to get more good players by getting more high picks in the top 2-3 rounds, which is what they have said that they need to do. So we'll see what happens. To me, the fastest way to make the playoffs when the new stadium opens is to pick very high again this year, honestly. And there's a trade-off there. And you don't go into a season saying this is what you want to have happen. But honestly, that's the quickest way to get the kind of draft capital that they need because they're so far behind the 8 ball with their talent pool.
And I know people will look at, Cincinnati and say, well, Cincinnati, they had a bad second season, but that wasn't done on purpose. Their quarterback got hurt. He was playing well as a rookie, and it didn't seem like they were going to get a high pick. Now, were they going to be a great team? Probably not. But I think they were trending toward getting better than not. And then your quarterback goes down and he missed the last, 7 games of the season. Coupled in, he was developing early on. It just fell into place right for them in a sense.
Yeah, but I look at the current guys, right? When that new stadium opens up, is Calvin Ridley still going to be what Calvin Ridley is today? He's probably going to be on the back 9, probably down past his prime. Tony Pollard, I think, clearly will be past his prime by the time that stadium opens. Jeffrey Simmons, you would really hope, still has a year or 2 left, but he's going to be paid a lot if he's still on the team. And that's why I think it's worth looking at trading him. I would shop him around and see what kind of draft capital I could get back. But if you go down the list, it's a short list of players that you are pretty certain are going to be core players when that stadium opens. That is where I think they're really in trouble, right? Like you start listing the players who are going to be on the team in their prime when that stadium opens. You hope Cam Ward is one. You still don't know if he's going to get there. You hope. Latham, Skoronski, Sweat, and
maybe Brownlee.
That's a maybe.
Yeah. But that's why I brought up Skoronski and Latham and those guys, because those are the guys you're hoping will get to a second contract, which means they will be in the new building.
Like, for example, Snead, it doesn't look like he will ever play in that stadium. I'd be stunned if he plays a game for the Titans in that new stadium, the direction his career is going. It'd be a great story if he can rebound. But they paid a lot of money and gave up a 3rd-round pick to get him, and he may not ever play in that new stadium. These are the kind of things that I think about when you're trying to build a roster to be good in the new stadium.
The Titans were on the practice field today against the Atlanta Falcons. We talked to Teron Davenport earlier in the program. His report, not so good for the Tennessee Titans today. A lot of talk about a sluggish start to practice, which is something the Titans also said about their joint practice with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. The Titans and Falcons will be practicing against each other again tomorrow morning. Derek, if we hear the same thing today, if we hear the same thing tomorrow that we heard today, how much of a concern would that be for you?
I would be disappointed. I really would, because listen, they may not win every rep, but I don't think you can come out and have the same thing said by players at the end of practice that you had today. If that happens, I am highly disappointed in this team. Do I think that it would ultimately mean they're a bad team? No, but I would be disappointed, because that's the one thing. If you come off the practice field and it feels like there wasn't maximum effort, and then players come out and say there wasn't maximum effort, there wasn't. That next day, you make sure that there's maximum effort out on that field. I don't care what it takes. You make sure that. It may not mean that you win every rep, but it means it looks much different than what it did the prior day. And we're not going to question whether we started off slow. They may have just been better than us in certain periods, but it wasn't because we lacked effort or anything else, or we started off slow. So if it happens again, I'm just disappointed. And that would tell me what the leaders are saying, it's not reaching everybody. That's what that would tell me, and that's disappointing, if indeed that does happen.
Willie, your thoughts on same question?
I really try not to overreact to any one practice, but I would like to see a response because these are the things that are talked about in a locker room. I can sit here from 50,000 feet up and say, hey, at the end of the day, it's going to be about how they look in a few weeks. And they could be meandering their way as long as they get there. But in the locker room, that's what everybody's talking about. Guys, we were sluggish today. Tomorrow, we're going to show them that we're better than that. And they're not going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending champions, right? The Falcons are a team that's got a lot of holes. They've got a young quarterback. They should not be dominated and overmatched by the Falcons, right? And I do buy that the travel and the turnaround and the late arrival, it could lead to your biorhythms or whatever. Sometimes you just don't have it. But tomorrow, that's not going to fly, right? As a professional team, you want to see a response. You want to see an edgy team that's got some pep and bounces back.
Well, we'll see how the Titans respond. They practice tomorrow morning. We will be on the air, of course, at 3:00, reacting to it. Hopefully, we will have more positive things to react to from Titans practice tomorrow versus what we heard and read from today's practice in Atlanta. Richard Deitch, the Athletics media reporter, will join us at 4:00 tomorrow. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us at 5 for his weekly segment with us. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your day and your commute. We will talk to you tomorrow at 3:00.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Tuesday. I love you. We love you. Peace.